2, 1. Madam Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, human existence, although imperfect, is actually something worth fighting for and believing in. The world, insofar as there are many horrors, is actually very challenging, but we think things can actually get better as opposed to the cynicism you get coming from side government. In fact, I posit a very simple intuition pump. Life right now is the best it is, and it's only going to be better. We think that human beings specifically have free will, sentience, and agency to be able to be the harbinger of change and be able to do things like innovate and make things better. In as much as we are imperfect, we are the only beings who are cognizant, empathetic, and able to realize good and wrong, which actually serve as a counterbalance to the harms that side government talks about. In fact, we believe that our capacity to evolve and get where we are today shows our ability to survive, given that we can retain things like knowledge and information, allowing us to learn to make the world a better place. Before I move on to my extension, let's knock out CG from this debate. They talk about a very contradictory sense of consent. Because if they are motivated by helping women exercise their choice and agency, the solution isn't to literally infringe on the consent of half of the other women on the planet who also may want to be mothers and may want to be able to have a nice life and raise a beautiful child. That is to say, if the problem they have is on patriarchal structures, then it's not about making patriarchal structures impotent, because that's the point in which they're gonna blame the woman and harm them even more, even if it's their fault, it's the guy. Because they're gonna be like, it's your fault, you're the one who's impotent, bring me an heir to my kingdom. And the woman's like, no, I'm fine, it's you, right? That leads to more harm. But if their idea of consent is also about women not consenting to getting pregnant and not consenting to having children, then there are many alternatives we can do. Get an abortion, use contraceptives, give the child up for adoption, yada, yada, yada. I have a strategic observation about opening government. Opening government sounds like those cynical killer dudes or doomsday people who are like, the world is scary, it's gonna get worse, bruh, I'm gonna fucking kill my family while they're sleeping. We think it's motivated by this misconstrued idea of wanting to preserve quality of life because they're worried that things may get worse. But we think violating on the consent of people to live a good life, not just themselves, but their posterity, you rob them a chance of things to get better if opening government concedes that in 50 to 60 years, the world will no longer be intact and go extinct. Those next 50 to 60 years are going to be far from liberating. They are going to be scary, given that individuals, collectives, and institutions no longer have a chance to be able to aspire for more, but it becomes a race to the bottom wherein human greed ultimately wrecks people. Sure, whoever raised the POI, go for it.
Do you think we live in a medieval century? I think at the point of which women are unable to procreate, also men are unable to procreate, are you still thinking that it's going to be like the fault of women? That's the only information that's going to be propagated in society.
I mean, it's on your side, bro, that women won't be able to propagate. Hence, the harms that CG talks about are going to get exacerbated. I agree with you. The world is not perfect, the environment is bad, but it's only when we allow people to be born that you have a chance that that opportunity cost that exists with any form of life allows you a chance to make change. Meaning, for every unborn child, because half the population is impotent, you rob the chance to be able to have a child who might be able to cure cancer, who might be able to have a groundbreaking innovation like being able to make the environment better, or even have a child who might be a world debate champion someday. What is my case, as I've also been arguing in my rebuttal? What are the harms of government case, which really is bioterrorism, and how does that wreck humanity? And why ultimately the comparative of the value of life is something worth preserving in order to solve the problems that they posit. A, We believe that being born is challenging and subject to things like the birth lottery, but it fundamentally is good in human existence. Because more than consent that our opening talks about and family dynamic, it's really in the chance to be able to live your own life. That is to say, it's not that parents don't consent to these particular things. It's that their children also don't have a chance to be able to choose that they're born, and that ultimately robs them a chance of doing something beautiful. And we think that those lost chances are what you get on their side, and a lot of the harms at worst continue to be the same. The second is, you actually create a power struggle, wherein you skew power and opportunity to the majority of people in society. That is to say, certain races, cultures, and ethnicities are going to drown out, and people who are minorities continue to even be more of a minority. And this also attacks what closing tells you about the environment and the population, because you're simply going to skew all of those things to being disproportionately bad in certain areas where you have less people who are able to do good things like take care of ice bear or be able to take care of animals and other beings you claim to be important because they can't help themselves. We think that this idea about the environment is good and noble, but bro, if no one is there to appreciate beauty, no one is there to hear the tree fall, no one is there to be able to make the change and ascribe meaning to these things, is a point in which the environment is rather useless. Lastly, we think that the randomness of the pathogen is ultimately a coin toss that wrecks life. And we think leaving it up to chance, especially when you are that individual, choosing to be able to release it, is the point in which you solely become responsible for wrecking humanity. Really quickly, I have 6 reasons in terms of why we can solve problems in status quo. Number 1, contraceptives. Number 2, abortion. Number 3, family planning. Number 4, economic realities of life being expensive. Number 5, pandemics. Number 6, war. All of these things can solve overpopulation and ultimately allow things to be better, as opposed to the scary pathogen with doomsday narratives we are very proud to stand on side opposition.